Hello, hello, live stream, October 11th edition. West Coast, big storm incoming here. Thought I'd go ahead and do a live stream for a little bit tonight. So I'll let a few people get in here and I'll set things up. A couple more things I need to do here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that really quick. I'll make sure there is no reverb. Hopefully not. I don't have a very good track record with that. Edition. Test, test, test. Anybody in here, let me know if audio is good. I see some people in the chat now, so that's a bonus. Sent the information out there. Make sure that everybody knows about the live stream here. Five by 5 sounds good. All right, yeah. Some active weather headed our way for the West Coast, both Pacific Northwest and all the way down through California. Yet again, early start to the fall season here. Loud and clear. We've got Montana in the house. Already got 200 people in here, not bad. So I'm going to go ahead and try to fix this up a little bit here. Okay, so I can see the chat a little better. Nice. Forbes Mercy. Vashon Island. I'm just across the Puget Sound from you, over there in Normandy Park. So what we're looking at here is, of course, the mid-level water vapor loop. I show this all the time. But you can see this area out here, this little kink in this north flow, that is where next energy is coming. This storm is going to develop right over the Pacific Northwest. It's actually going to strengthen a bit here and become quite dynamic and impact California as we go on into Monday and on in through Tuesday. So all the way from British Columbia, Washington, Oregon, and California. Pretty impactful early season storm. It is only October 11th, and yeah, it's more like something that happens as we go on in through later periods into the winter months. But granted, the cold air is just not there with this system. I mean, we haven't allowed the northern hemisphere to cool down that much. It's typical for this time of year. You're just not going to get that same Arctic air locked up and then released back down to the south in the month of October. If this was even November, we've gotten some pretty big Arctic outbreaks in the month of November in the Pacific Northwest. And December and January, February goes without saying. This would be a much different scenario. We'd be talking about some lower elevation snowfall potentially. But as it is, it's going to be a fairly decent shock to the system. We're going to cool down quite a bit here, get some mountain snows. We might get some thunderstorms, some convergent zone activity, some gusty winds out there. And of course, like I mentioned, this is going to come all the way down the coastline and be a pretty impactful storm for much of California. 300 people in the chat. Dennis P in the house, TJ in the house. Let's see if any of my people that were moderators previously, let me know and I'll re-establish you as a moderator. Once I went through the hacking process, for whatever reason, it kicked all my moderators out. So I had to put some new people in there. So yeah, West Coast weather storm. Well, you know, a pretty decent storm coming up here. Willamette Valley, Oregon in the house. Enumclaw, Vancouver Island. I'm not related to Jim Snyder, not that I know of. I'm related to quite a few Snyders, but I don't, yeah, who knows. Patricia Higley in the house, Northwest Snohomish County. Ron Dog, I see you there. Okay, let's see. Can I add as a moderator? Boom. Okay, done. Yeah, with that, when I went to the hacking there, a month or two ago, it kicked everybody off. And it looks like I have total control of the channel again. So that's kind of nice. DFW in the house. Oh, you'll get some snow in the higher terrain. We're not talking about snow for the lower elevations, really, for the most part. We do have this, though. I'll show you what's been going on. We got some winter weather advisories for the Washington and the Oregon Cascades. And if we scroll down through California, because the storm's going to be really impactful, you can see we got winter storm watches up for the Sierra Nevada And we got wind advisories right now for some of the transverse range and back up towards the southern Sierra Nevada. It's pretty gusty here as well. Tehachapi out there. And you can see if I zoom in, you can see Mojave is right there. It's Lancaster and Palmdale. And the I-5 corridor, pretty darn right windy as we go through tonight. And if I click on that, you can kind of see this. Talking about isolated gusts up to 60 miles per hour Saturday night. And of course, that is right now across the I-5 corridor. And if you click on some of this action here across the Sierra Nevada, you can see also we're talking about Monday morning through Wednesday afternoon, 12 to 24 inches. I mean, early October, you just got to love that if you're a snow lover across the higher terrain, and very hazardous conditions. Snow levels generally 6,500 to 7,000 feet, but there is quite a bit of activity at that level or higher. You know, California has got a lot of people there, and there's a lot of my followers off there in the backcountry. Donner Pass on I-80 is at 7,000 feet. So if you click up here and you check out the winter storm watch for some of the northern Sierra Nevada, you can see snow level at 6,500 feet. So that should be below Donner Pass for at least portions of this time, and accumulations of 1 to 3 feet. That is not 1 to 3 inches. That is 1 to 3 feet. So you're going to want to watch out for traveling back and forth Monday morning through Wednesday afternoon. Aqua Chunk is in the house. I see Ron Dog is there. Let's see. Anybody else? The chat's coming in pretty quick. That's good. So, yeah, just making sure that if you were a moderator again, kind of let me know and I'll reinstate you. If I recognize your name, that is. And again, okay, so I brought that up also. So we get the winter weather advisory up. So if I click up towards the North Cascades and I click on that, see 4 to 10 inches, 5 a.m. Sunday. So this starts tomorrow morning when the snow potentially could be coming in through 5 a.m. on Monday. And first notable snowfall in the Cascades this season. Snow level greatest above 4,000 feet. You could get some accumulating snowfall a little bit lower than that, but the biggest totals above 4,000 feet. Stevens Pass is right there at 4,000 feet. Mount Baker, you know, I think the ski area up there is like 5. If somebody correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm remembering that incorrectly, but yeah, we do have the winter weather advisor. So when we click out here, there's Leavenworth right there. This is Highway 97. There's Blewett Pass in here. So if I click on the winter weather advisory for Highway 97, talks about the low pressure system. It's not really a deep low pressure system. I mean, it's a potent upper level low, but the surface, it's only going to be like a 1,004 millibar low, but there's a pretty good pressure gradient with it. But moderate to heavy snow expected for higher elevations above 3,000 feet in the Cascades, northern mountains of eastern Washington, northern Idaho. And big changes coming in here. Winter weather conditions and wind chills down into the teens and single digits. So, I mean, for October, this is a big deal. This is huge because, in October, we can get pretty nice weather. I mean, what was it? Last year at this time, I was up at Mount Rainier and I stayed overnight on the mountain with, and it was nice and warm and whatnot. So yeah, it is that time of year where things can change quite dramatically. And Washington, the Pacific Northwest, California is a big place. And I guarantee you there's going to be people off in the backcountry that get caught off guard by this. But you can see 2 to 6 inches there, 6 to 12 inches above 4,000 feet. And this does include some of the higher terrain right around Highway 97. Again, there's Leavenworth. And if we go a little bit further south, let's click near Snoqualmie Pass and see what it says here. Northern King County. Let's see is this just kind of a canned response? I'm going to click a little bit further south there. So this is the east slopes of the Cascades. Okay, so there we go. East slopes of the Oregon Cascades up into Washington, 4 p.m. Sunday to 1 p.m. on Monday. Slick snow expected about 4,000 feet. So White Pass, Santiam Pass, heads up. I'll start to show you some of this here in a moment as well. In fact, let me put this into motion. What do we got going here? Bit of a convergent zone going on across northern Seattle up into Snohomish County as well. The lightning expert, thanks for the generosity. There is lightning possible tomorrow. Yes, there is. And I will start to show that now since we're already talking about it. But I'll bring up some of this composite reflectivity. This is actually running hot off the presses right now, the 0Z North American model. So you'll see it. This is what's showing right now. I just showed you that on the Doppler radar. That stuff. You can see the NAM picking up on that fairly well. And you can see that moving off into the Cascades there. Now, as we go through tomorrow morning, you can kind of see this precipitation picking up, and we're going to have some convergence zone areas up here across northwest Washington initially. You see the showers kind of rolling through there, but when this sets up across some of the Salish Sea, some of the Puget Sound there, you see some of these reds out here as we go through the afternoon tomorrow. You could get a few lightning strikes with some of this activity as we go on into tomorrow, and then you'll see that system start to push down to the south, and then that will be kind of moving out of the area a little bit here as we go through Monday afternoon as that system quickly drives down towards California. But we're still going to have some of this moisture moving across eastern Oregon to Idaho into portions of Montana as well. If we take a look at the high resolution rapid refresh, I'll show you that here now. I'll kind of just scroll through here. Let's go to the 0Z since it goes out 48 hours. This is that activity here tonight, that convergence zone. So we go on into tomorrow and you see the showers picking up there. And again, you can kind of see this convergence zone moving down. And you can see there's some heavier precipitation in some of these bands. That convergence zone could be kicking off some lightning with it. Also can't rule out some lightning strikes with these showers moving across portions of western Oregon, southwest Washington as we go on into tomorrow as well. And kind of see the spin in the atmosphere as that surface low kind of moves down across the region. And we got some upslope snow possibility here as well in eastern Washington. If we take a look at those winds, 80-meter wind speeds, watch what happens as we go through the day tomorrow. Notice how this is all westerly as we go through tomorrow morning, and you see the westerly flow down the Strait of Juan de Fuca, but look at what's going on across this Fraser River Valley there. Pushes out into the open waters there over the San Juan Islands, and look at the north flow come down the Puget Sound. Look at the north wind come down the Okanagan River Valley here as well. So watch this. We're going to scroll off in towards Monday and see some of this activity here. You got this northeast flow, could be pushing back up in towards the east slopes of the Cascades. Look at this Fraser River outflow going here in October. I mean, if this was a very cold Arctic air mass, we would have tons of Arctic air pouring out. And it's still technically Arctic air, but it's not like it would be even if we were a month on into the future or 2 months on into the future in through December. And then you can kind of see that northeast flow get established across the region. We could get some pretty gusty east winds here as well across some of the Oregon Cascades by the time we get into Monday night. Washington Weather Chasers in the house. Looks like I already reestablished Ben as a moderator. I must have done that in the last live stream. Dirk Doppler in the house. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, that's a good point. Somebody brought up the fact that, let me back that up here. Let's go to the European. And I want to show you what's coming again as we go on in through next week, because I'm always looking off into the future what's going to happen as we go on into the next phase of the forecast. And so as we go through tomorrow, there goes our weak surface modified Arctic frontal system. There's that surface low right there, and you can see that sink south of the area. But by the time we're going through Monday afternoon, we're going to be clearing out pretty quickly here for a lot of the area. And you can see by the time we get to Monday night, the precipitation for BC and Seattle, Portland is going to be a distant memory. Some of this is going to continue as this low continues to track across Nevada, back up to Oregon, Idaho, and Montana. So don't sleep on that activity here, because it's going to keep the precipitation going all the way through Wednesday and potentially on in through Thursday. But as we go on in through late Monday and then Tuesday and then Wednesday, again, probably some nice conditions here, maybe some clear skies, some bright sunshine, but definitely you'll feel a chill in the atmosphere as you go on in through Tuesday and Wednesday. So there's also another way we can look at that here as well. Let's go to total cloud cover, and I'm going to back this up and we'll go ahead and take a look at what is coming tomorrow. Let's see how fast we clear out, because there's tomorrow's system kind of pinwheeling down across the region, and by the time we get to Monday, you can see Vancouver, southwest BC is starting to clear out by Monday late morning. Seattle by afternoon, the clouds are clearing out a bit there. Portland a little bit later than Seattle, but by the time we get towards Tuesday, you see not much in the way of clouds, some brisk nice sunshine there. So Tuesday, Wednesday, definitely the best chances for some clear, dry weather. And then we got another system coming towards the end of the week. We get a little bit, another pattern change rolling in here as we get that next frontal system. Next Wednesday open. Yes. So that's okay. So what, the Mariners play the Blue Jays on Sunday and Monday, Tuesday off. So we play Wednesday, Thursday in T-Mobile. I assume that is correct. So Wednesday, Thursday. Yes. On Wednesday, roof will almost certainly be open. Well, there is a temperature cutoff there as well, but let's take a look at those temperatures. Let's go to, yeah, no, Wednesday should be open. You can see that you're going to be in the 50s at least and probably into the 60s because this is the parent temperature. Wednesday should be a very nice day. Thursday, the clouds are going to start moving in a bit. And let's actually look at that. Let's look and see when that next precipitation arrives. It's not a lot, a little bit of light precipitation, but I don't know. I don't think that's probably going to be showing up for Seattle too much. So Thursday might be roof open also, but almost certainly on Wednesday as of right now, probably like a 95% chance the roof will be open for the Mariners game on Wednesday. Work virtually in Northwest Washington. Nice. Watching from Denver, Colorado. Welcome. Yeah, so let's go ahead and look at the latest on California as well. So we're going to go down to, well, we're looking at the west here. Let me just go through this and we're going to check this out again. So let's scroll through there. So you can really see this storm. I mean, it's going to be working with a decent amount of moisture just simply because you see the low pressure system itself is not that deep, 1003 millibar low. And that's really as low as it gets. But the upper level low is very cold. So you got very cold air aloft, and still at this time of year, the ocean water off the coast. In fact, I'm going to look at that here while I'm talking about it because the water off the coastline is still very warm. And if we go to temperature anomaly, look at these temperatures. I mean, it's October and things are, relatively warm here out over the Pacific Ocean, versus December and January. But on top of that, look at how much warmer than normal they are for this time of year. So that is pretty interesting. With a cold upper level low, this could add some punch to both that frontal system and some of these post-frontal showers across portions of California as well. And yeah, Los Angeles is talking about a little bit of a tornado threat and some thunderstorm activity here also with this next storm system. Okay, but now back to it. And if we take a look here, you can see the decent precipitation amounts really hit Santa Barbara, Ventura County. It looks like Los Angeles County, especially in the higher terrain, is just going to get hammered there. And I'm going to drop down to the southwest here just so we can take a closer look at that. Where are we? Here we go. And you can see some pretty good in this last European model run, Los Angeles, Orange County, pretty good precipitation amounts. In fact, since that shows up fairly well, let's go ahead and look at Southern California. And not bad. There's good precipitation all the way down through San Diego, but we'll take a look at 12-hour totals here. And I mean, look at some Orange County. You're getting right away from the immediate coastline, you're up over an inch, maybe an inch and a half for some areas. And look at this in a 12-hour period, 3 inches of precipitation across some of Los Angeles County. Higher terrain, but Los Angeles still getting decent amounts as well. So what a storm. I mean, all the way up and down the West Coast. And if I back out again here and we go to west and kind of track this, let's go all the way back to where we are. And you can see, again, the storm developed here across Pacific Northwest. And as it starts to track down the Oregon coast into California, you can see it get in the Bay Area, Central Coast, and portions of Southern California. The mountains especially are really going to be hit hard with that. And let's go into precipitation total. I want to back that up here again as well. And you can kind of see that moving all the way down. Some of the heaviest amounts in some of the mountains of Southern California, Sierra Nevada getting blasted also. Brad Ward in the house. One of my fellow dispatchers at Alaska Airlines. Used to be a manager at Alaska Airlines. And now he's back to where he belongs on the dispatch desk doing the real work. No, I kid. I mean, it's all good work. Alaska Airlines is a great place to work. Fun. Thanks, Brad. And will we get snow in November, or is it too early to tell? Well, if we keep this pattern up and we continue to throw these north and northwest flows, it's not out of the question that you can get snow in November in the Pacific Northwest. It highly depends on where you are, and it's quite rare, but it does happen sometimes in the month of December. But I'm hopeful for December and January this year. We're due for a big January snowstorm, so somebody mark that down on your calendar and let's see if it happens. Washington Weather Chasers got one of them. Nice. Burn area, yes, definitely burn area mudslide potential in Southern California with this storm. I mean, all this precipitation here is all from this storm. This is just through 82 hours. All right, over 525 in the chat. Core Dog T, thanks for the generosity, sir. Okay, let's jump out. Actually, I was going to look at this too. So the North American model is just about done running here, and we'll see how far out this goes. So this, I just love this from a meteorological aspect because you can see the high pressure across the interior of British Columbia. Lake Williams is right about there. You're looking at about 10, 20 millibars versus, so you're looking at about 4, 8, 12. I mean, that's not a bad gradient there for early October. That's a pretty good gradient coming across. The north and the northeast wind is going to be howling for some areas as we go on in towards the early portion of next week. Look at Ron Dog. Nice. Thank you for the generosity, sir. Amazing thing about lightning appears to strike down from the sky, then visible brilliant flash. You see actually final return stroke. Yes, that's true. Yeah, if you're interested in lightning like that, it's really worth watching some of the YouTube videos. I should make one myself. I've caught it actually in front of my house. I've seen some nice upward strokes too from the naked eye that you can see. And, I wish we got more lightning here in the Pacific Northwest. I love, taking pictures of it, and I like getting video of it and whatnot. And we're one of the least, likely areas to get lightning. So sometimes I wish I lived somewhere else just for that fact, but we still do get some pretty interesting weather here in the region. Robert Boyer, thanks for the generosity. At 34, SY Dandy. No, Sid. Okay, so SYD NDY. 3-4 left. Okay. It sounds like somebody Brad Ward nods there. Okay. So my curiosity, I've seen possible. Oh yeah. Okay. So yes, let's take a look at that. That's a question from Robert Boyer. So we'll go oceanic. Let's do the European though. Let's do the artificial intelligence. In fact, we'll go to oceanic and we'll go to the Gulf of Alaska. Boom, boom, boom. So actually, we're going to do even further out than that. We're going to go northern and wide view, and we're going to look at the jet stream because it has been showing a more active jet stream coming as we go on through the month. So let's back this up. There we are right now, and you can see this big ridge out over the Gulf of Alaska. There's the kink in the jet stream bringing our storm system, and it's also the same thing that's bringing the storm system to California on the entire West Coast. And we get a little bit of a break here as we go, like I mentioned, through Wednesday. Then the jet stream starts to get pointed back at the Pacific Northwest. And here's that system as we go towards the end of the week. That could be a fairly strong frontal system here as we go through next weekend. So, I'm sorry for everybody if you're wanting that nice weather on the weekend. I don't know. It doesn't look like it's going to happen. We got a big ridge there. There's that next trough. Transient ridge slides through, and does this jet stream get pretty active? It does. Look at that jet. Just gets powered across. Whoo, man, look at that thing. So this has been showing up in some of the long-range models, and that is just a hyperactive jet. That would bring some strong systems possibly towards the west coast of North America. And as you saw, this thing was still kind of pushing down into British Columbia and towards Washington and Oregon there. So yeah, we continue to monitor that time period, 2 weeks out. You're looking at October 25th, 26th, and the storm track really gets active potentially. Yeah, this might not be a bad time to go up. If you want to catch some early season snow, it's definitely not a bad time to get out there. I mean, I watch for work purposes and enjoy real educational learning. Yeah, thanks for the generosity. You guys, I'm here for you guys. That's you guys make the channel possible. These donations, they don't seem like much, but it's a big deal. It keeps the channel going. Yeah, Aquachunk was sending me some pictures of his lenticular cloud activity there. Nice view, and sent me. I love seeing good lenticular clouds, especially up close. So like right here, you're seeing, you can this makes it easy. If you look at the bottom right, that's 153 knots right there. If I scroll back and forth, you can see at that point right there, see that jet streak right here? That's 184 knots. That's over 200 miles per hour. Excuse me. I don't want to cough into the microphone there. Yeah, but that's a pretty wicked jet stream coming across the Pacific Ocean, given this is at 39,000 feet. And then you can check at other levels, like at 30,000 feet, you can see, wow, that's even stronger at 30,000 feet. Staggering 193 knots right there, just south of the Aleutian Islands, just absolutely trucking towards the west coast. So you can imagine, that would be packing a pretty powerful punch towards the west coast. You could be talking atmospheric rivers, windstorms, flooding, stuff like that. Well, we'll see how this trends. You don't want to get too caught up in those details just yet, but that's a pretty potent jet moving through the extended forecast, no doubt. Yeah, it can, that warmer water out there definitely can help. I mean, you can see some of these areas are, +4 Celsius above normal for this time of year, and any little bit helps. Any additional energy, especially with cold upper level lows, that really helps. It's a big lapse rate. You got warm water at the surface and cold air aloft. Will there be a lightning strike in Des Moines? That is the $1,000,000 question. And it's not out of the question tomorrow. It is not out of the question. In fact, I'll show you here since you threw a couple bucks my way. Let's go ahead and do this, and we'll go to severe weather, we'll go to lightning flash density, and we'll go to the 0Z. We'll take a look at the latest high resolution rapid refresh. So this is tomorrow, and you can kind of see this area right there. This is when the northerlies and the high resolution start pushing down the sound. Those northerlies push down, they meet up with some of these westerlies, and you create that convergent zone activity, and you can see some of that lightning strike activity down towards Federal Way maybe, and maybe it'll start a little bit further north and include SeaTac, Gig Harbor, Kitsap Peninsula, down towards Olympia, Tacoma. And you can kind of see that slide down south across the area. Now, kind of remember that. Remember where that lightning sets up right there. And now I'm going to back up here, and I'm going to go to surface wind, 180 meter wind speed. And in fact, I'm going to zoom in. We're going to go to cities, and we're going to go to Seattle since we're located on that one. And you see that northerly wind? Look what it's doing. Got southwesterlies across the Puget Sound right there. Watch the northerlies come blasting on down. See that big convergence activity right there? That's what could be triggering some of that lightning activity tomorrow. Now, the HRRR sometimes I find can bring down these northerlies a little bit too quickly. And if we take a look at what the North American model shows with that, you can see at the same time it still has southerlies across the Puget Sound. Although it does have the northerlies starting, they have not yet reached downtown Seattle. And then they take a little bit longer to get down, and that convergence and that northerly surge would not be quite as strong. But as we go through the day on Monday, look at how windy it gets out of the north. I mean, it's a bit unusual just because the direction, but it does get pretty brisk out of the north on the day Monday, which would be kind of the windy, sunny, brisk, chilly days out there across the area. Look at the flow just coming down out of the north here across the region, northeast out there east of the mountains as well. The Highway 50 corridor, you're looking at probably 6,500, 7,000 feet. And I know Lake Tahoe was supposed to get some snowfall there. Let's see. Well, South Lake Tahoe, it must be right on the borderline there. So, right, maybe an inch of snowfall, but definitely snow accumulating on surrounding highways, higher peaks there. I mean, after all, it is still just the early or the first half of October. I watch your videos every class period with my prescribed fire class at University of Idaho. Thanks for the instruction. Thank you for watching. Yeah, I'm gonna do actually. I'm gonna speak in front of some people at work, Alaska Airlines here in the next couple of months, and I get to do a presentation about the Pacific Northwest and kind of throw a little education and tell everybody what and how, the what, hows, and whys of the Pacific Northwest. And that's weather. Wind-wise next week, it shouldn't be too big of a deal. There is windstorm potential as we go towards the end of October for the Pacific Northwest. But that's a ways out there right now. Like I mentioned, we're just seeing kind of a hyperactive jet stream ripping across the Pacific Ocean, as you can see right there. But that's still, this is 2 weeks out, and things can change at that time frame, even though this has kind of been showing up in the extended runs. If we look at the GFS, let's see, let's play this back. Let's go all the way back. Everybody's favorite, the GFS. Here's our storm system there, and this one's, again, going to come down all the way through California. That's the one we're dealing with here. Offshore flow, ridging builds, nice day Wednesday, maybe a decent day Thursday, but the jet stream, yeah, it starts to get pretty active again as we go towards the end of next week. So getting some pretty good agreement on a system rolling towards next week, and that's a potent little bugger right there too. That's a pretty potent frontal system through next weekend here. That would bring some pretty good precipitation amounts with it as well. Another kink in the jet stream, transient ridge moves by, and then look at this hyperactive jet really get ripping. So yeah, the GFS is on board with the artificial intelligence on a pretty powerful jet stream reaching all the way across the Pacific. Let's see what the deterministic model. So it goes out 144 hours. So we'll look at the 12Z data here. There goes our offshore flow, our ridge, and then next weekend system. There's that first one. So yeah, maybe a 1-2 punch. Probably showing a pretty decent storm system as we go through next weekend. And then that hyperactive jet also showing up there as well. Let's do this. Let's go to... Let's go that 240 hours in the Canadian. It also shows a pretty powerful jet. Robert Boyer, again, thank you very much for the generosity. Western Washington weather in the house. Very interesting north wind potential on Monday. Yeah, I was meant to talk about that a little bit more because here in Normandy Park, we live pretty close to the shoreline, the Puget Sound. And when the wind starts blowing above 30 miles per hour out of the north, it can cause power outages. I remember twice in about the last 10 years where I've gotten like 33 and 36 mile per hour gusts out of the north, and it breaks tree branches and stuff. The north winds, the trees don't like them. They are not used to it. They are well versed for southwest and southerly winds. The north is a whole different ball game. You expose weak branches, you knock snags out of trees, you can blow down weakened trees. It's pretty insane because we had a north wind, I believe that was towards 40 miles per hour, and it was taking down trees and stuff. And it looked like a 55 or a 60 mile per hour windstorm had rolled through the area. And I don't remember exactly when that was. It was a few years ago. But yeah, these north winds are no joke. When it starts getting up over 30 miles per hour, I definitely take notice. No, I would think not any severe thunderstorm potential. There will be some convective available potential energy, and lightning strikes can always damage things and whatnot, but I wouldn't expect any severe wind gusts, or I wouldn't expect hail above 1 inch. Severe thunderstorms are generally categorized by wind, hail, or tornadic potential, and that should not be the case. If anything did happen with any kind of water spout activity with this, maybe along some of the coastal areas or down the Puget Sound or anywhere else, they would be weak and brief, and I don't expect any 1 inch hail, and I don't expect any 58 mile per hour or greater winds with these individual thunderstorms or anything like that. It would just be kind of the danger of the lightning itself. Yeah, anywhere up and down across the region. When you change the dominant wind direction and you bring the wind out of the other direction, like out of the north, anywhere across the Pacific Northwest, whatever, it's a big deal because trees are not used to that. And not only that, you can, if you're doing it at high tide, places like Redondo or Alki, you can get, waves watching up over the bulkheads and things that can do beach erosion and all kinds of stuff. I think in pretty good Arctic blast in the 90s, or was that 1990, December 1990, where Redondo had big time boardwalk damage and damage to the street because the north winds just ripping down the Puget Sound. Got a pretty good fetch over that water and really brought some waves and just hammered it. In some of those storms like Lincoln Park and Vashon Island, there was a fatality on Vashon Island. The Lincoln Park was just absolutely destroyed there in West Seattle from some of the northerly winds ripping down the Puget Sound. So it could be a big deal. We're not looking at those gusts up over 40 miles per hour from what I saw. If we get towards 40, it's a problem. Anything over 30 can cause power outages, though. Yeah, December 1990 was the one that destroyed Redondo. That was a vicious storm. Maple Ridge, BC in the house. Have you ever heard of being snowed in? Being snowed in, sure. Well, I was treed in at Green River with the inaugural day storm. It took us hours to get off the campus. Will there be a windstorm? There will be a windstorm some point this year. I'm going out on a limb with that. No, it's not really going out on a limb because we get windstorms every year here. Will we get a region-wide big windstorm? Maybe, maybe not. But it's been a while. It's been a while since we've had one worth naming that's struck the region. As far as off into the end of October, it's possible we could get a windstorm here. It's definitely possible. Yeah, I noticed that up towards Magnolia. It did show 40 mile per hour gust for hitting some portions of Seattle. So yeah, it's definitely kind of caught my attention because again, if we look at this, pressure means sea level pressure, and this is what we're concerned about. That is a pretty mean pressure gradient. I mean, you're looking 24. That's 24 millibars Northern California to BC. That's still 16 millibars from, Toledo, Washington, and it's what, 4, 8, 12 from Seattle to Lake Williams. It's a pretty decent pressure gradient coming down. Eris Loveland, thanks for the generosity. Not sure if this is the right time, but would you go over how to read the weather balloon soundings or potentially a future dedicated video deep dive about reading different charts? Yes, that's a good idea. And I'm actually working on a video for that where I'm going to explain what I mean when I talk about 500 millibar charts, 850 jet streams, and try to break things down to a very simplistic way. So where I can just point to this video and say, hey, if you have questions about what I'm talking about, this is the place to go. But I'll go over that here. Let's just do a little bit. We'll do a little bit of that right now. So if I go to soundings and I go to North American model and we go to CTAC, something what you're looking at, just a couple things. I'm not going to go into this too deep, but there's a hodograph up here, and this will kind of tell you wind direction. So you can imagine you're standing right there, and you point out to here, and you'd think that's about what, 12 knots, and that's out of the southwest, which you can see right here. You have that wind out of the southwest, and you notice how it turns westerly when you go up towards 5,000 feet, turns a bit northwesterly, and then north when you go up above, what you're talking about for 10,000 feet, turns northwesterly and then north. And you kind of see that if you're standing there, that wind is now coming out of the northeast. And then you can see at different wind speeds there. So that's what's known as a hodograph in the upper right. Just kind of gives a meteorologist a quick look on where the wind direction is coming from and just how strong the winds are. And if you're looking here, you're looking at the red line being the temperature and the green line being the dew point. You can kind of see where you're saturated in the profile here. And you can look down and you can see other things like lapse rates for between different altitudes, and you can see CAPE at the surface. So if we scroll through here, and I'm going to go on into Sunday, watch the temperature column there as we go through the day on Sunday. You notice how it's cooling down, and then you see this little pink line show up. That's convective available potential energy right there. And you notice we got some pretty decent CAPE. And what we also have, if you notice, we do have a little bit of some turning in some of these hodographs right there. And you get some of that turning, that's when you get enough wind shear that you can create things like water spouts. It's not unheard of, or funnel clouds. You don't expect anything too strong. I mean, the storm is topping out at 15,000 feet there. That's where that unstable air parcel would go, and then it would kind of hit there and wouldn't go much further. So these would be fairly shallow topped. But the possibility does remain. And actually this one here, if I look at that profile, this goes up towards 18,000 feet. That is right about 5 p.m. tomorrow. And again, you might just have enough turning, especially when you're dealing with terrain features. And sometimes these winds are locally stronger where you can get some interesting things going on. But that's just kind of a little bit of a look at what a weather sounding is when I do show these. But yeah, you can see this overall picture of how this pressure gradient is. And if I back that up, let's go a little bit back here. And then I'm going to go to, we'll go right off the surface, and you can really see these winds ripping through the Fraser River Valley there. This is about 2,500 feet, but you can really see this wind ripping out of the north and the northeast and back out over the water here. And when this air is really cold, it moves back out over this ocean water that's relatively warm. And that can create its own cyclogenesis. And it's kind of what's happening a little bit there. If I go back, you can kind of see is that just shows heights. This doesn't show mean sea level pressure, but you're going to get a little bit of a surface flow feature right here when this cooler air is moving off the continent, spinning off our coastline right there. And that's what brings the precipitation. And then you can kind of see that wind march all the way down towards California. But you can also see where the mid-latitude cyclone is, that this is just bringing some heavy precipitation into the central coast and eventually Southern California as you go on in through the day on Tuesday. And look at that upper level low right on the Bay Area there. Maybe some water spouts, thunderstorm activity with that as it rolls in on the day on Tuesday. So yeah, fun stuff coming up here. Halloween. Do we have, I guess we could go off on the, let's do this. October 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Halloween. Storm for California, maybe. But yeah, this is like looking to a crystal ball. It's like going to the tarot shop down the street or something and trying to get a forecast. It's not going to mean too much right now. Yeah, Alaska's getting a big storm right now. I mean, look at this monster up there. Just developing. I'm glad the last 4 days I've been working the Nome flights. I've been working the Dead Horse flights, Kodiak. I've been working Anchorage to Honolulu, Seattle to Anchorage, back and forth over and over again. So I just worked 4 days in a row up across Alaska, and the weather was quite nice. And I saw this storm coming, and I was not jealous that that I wasn't working these days, because it can get absolutely insane. There's some of the strongest mid-latitude cyclones on the planet occur up there across the Aleutian Islands. These storms are absolutely beastly. They are no joke, and it gets absolutely crazy. Weather tarot cards. Yeah, I should like sell those or something. Probably will actually. I think people might actually buy that. It's kind of funny. I could catch up on that a little bit in the chat. But yeah, there is our storm system coming here. So yeah, when I'm talking about, let's go back to this. We'll go to the NAM 3KM here. So this is what's coming tomorrow. You notice as we move through the day tomorrow, you kind of see the pressure fall here. That's an advance of that cold air. That's what I mentioned, that subtle troughing feature right there. See 1006 millibar low, deepens a little bit to 1005 briefly right off of Astoria. And you can see the higher pressure across the interior portions there. And then you see this pressure gradient really get ramped up here as we go through Monday morning. And there it is. You can see high pressure across BC, lower pressure across Southern Oregon. This is the storm that's pedaling its way all the way down towards California. Again, it's not a deep low. Most of the strength of the storm is coming from the upper levels of the atmosphere being so cold. And yeah, so that is our storm system here. So this is what's going on tomorrow. And we could get some convergence zone activity out of this. You can kind of see that. We're going to have to zoom in a little bit more if I'm going to show that a little better though. But yeah, this is tomorrow afternoon. You can see some of that convergence zone activity kind of moving around the Puget Sound there. Probably shows up a little bit better on the high resolution model, the rapid refresh. Yeah, I'm going to have my drone out and about. I'm going to be ready to go to watch this convergence zone activity come down the Puget Sound. I'll be watching the observations to see how fast is this northerly surge coming down the Puget Sound, because you can get some fun, interesting stuff. Like I've seen gustnadoes on the Puget Sound. It was one of the coolest things I've seen. These gustnadoes forming on the Puget Sound when we got a big surge down the Puget Sound out of the north, big wind shift. So I'm kind of waiting for that to happen again. That was so much fun. And then you can see the strong convergence zone kind of driving down across Tacoma, Olympia, maybe SeaTac as well. The lightning be scattered. Yes, it's, in fact, any one place getting lightning is going to be on the low side. If you hear thunder tomorrow, you're going to be one of the lucky ones if you are a weather lover, but it's definitely possible. So you kind of see it there, right there across Southern King County, right towards Olympia and Shelton there. That might be one of the hot spots tomorrow, but you could also get a lightning strike in some of the shower activity that moves in. Will it hit Skunk Alley? It could very well hit Skunk Alley as Federal Way in Storm Chaser World, by the way. That's where Matthew Fab lives, and he thinks that he never gets any weather. One lightning strike and thunder last night in Ocean Park, Washington. Nice. I like those one and dones, especially with the ones that sneak up on you. Yeah, that is a funny phenomenon. MH08. Funny how those don't have to deal with snow 6 months a year. Look forward to snow. I mean, yeah, it's like the Mariners in Seattle. They win they go to the playoffs every 25 years or something. So we don't get a snow enough in Seattle to where people would not want it. When it happens, people get so excited and we hope and we wish for it because we know that it could be a year or two before it comes back in a significant way. Willamette Valley tomorrow. Garrett Hartung is in the house. Yeah, I gotta give Garrett the moderator. Garrett's back in as moderator. Yeah, I mean, that's another thing too. There's some shower activity moving down across Western Oregon also. I don't mean to neglect that. Let's scroll through that. You can see these here. You could get lightning strikes to the Oregon coast. Willamette Valley possible. I mean, there is going to be some Cape out there. And look at these showers moving across the Willamette Valley here, back up into the foothills. They're moving across Oregon. Look at that, right towards PDX or Troutdale. There's Salem down here as well. And if we go to Surface Cape, you'll see there is some of that drifting around out there. It doesn't take much to give us a couple strikes here. And it is fun when it happens. Maybe somebody will see some small hail. Yeah, I can't believe the Mariners won that game last night. That was just absolutely wild. Everybody at work was just going nuts. Is this going to be a major storm? Also hail. It is a major storm for places like California. It's a very unusual storm than what is coming for California here. For the Pacific Northwest, it's early and it is some Arctic air, but it is modified Arctic air. So I wouldn't call it a major storm. But if we back out a little bit here, you can see where we are now. Watch what happens as I scroll through here with the high resolution. See how we turn kind of brown across the region? That's that modified Arctic air moving down. I'll toggle back again. So, I mean, it's unusual to get a storm like this early in the season. It's about as early as you can get one of these Arctic air setups to come down across the area, but the Arctic air is just not cold enough where it's going to bring the snow level down anywhere near the surface or anything like that. But you can see, look at that across the interior of British Columbia. Some of these single digit dew points out there, dry air moving down across the area. So remember this, toggle back and forth, see that dry air arriving. And I'll put on the 80-meter wind speeds, and you also see it. See, as I toggle back and forth, you can kind of see that initially onshore flow as that surface flow gets going, and then the offshore flow and the northerlies just flow down across the area. And don't sleep on these winds across some of the higher terrain. In fact, let's do this. I mean, you're talking about some gusts up over 60 miles an hour. Even a little bit of, is that, okay. Here, let's back up here. Oh, look at that. Look at that gorge wind coming all the way down through Portland and into the northern Willamette Valley. You see this right here? Watch this area right there. That happens. The hurricane can get a little bit too quick with some of that, but that comes on the day, late morning Monday. But look at some of these winds ripping across these slopes of the Cascades and whatnot. You're talking about Natchez out here and some of the higher terrain out above Yakima. I mean, just the wind absolutely ripping. Again, could be gusting up 65 miles per hour. And Oregon Cascades is going to be ripping here as well for, whew, man. Yeah, you could be getting some 60 plus gusts up across the higher terrain. The gorge is going to be ripping there as well, according to the high resolution rapid refresh. If we go to the North American model, not as much, but it does show some 60 mile per hour potential here as well. So yeah. And maybe Portland, look at that, gusting up towards 40 out of the east. That's not bad, especially for early October. Well, this is a more unusual storm for California. It's just some fun weather coming in here. We're going to get a nice wind shift. It's going to be chilly. You're going to get some mountain snows. You're going to get some breezy winds for some areas. And if it's strong enough, it could cause some power outages for some portions. I mean, like the high resolution only has the peak for Seattle at 28 on Monday. But look at some of these winds coming out of the Fraser River. You're gusting up over 45 there. Yes, major storm moving down is mostly for California. And I'll play that over again here. So there we go tomorrow. We scroll on into Monday, and you see that storm really get ramped up for California there. A lot of mountain snow incoming here. Heavy rain. Bay Area south, especially Central Coast. Southern California, perhaps all the way down through Orange County. And that upper level low is going to be with us as we go on in through the day. Tuesday as well, there's thunderstorm potential. I mean, you could even get some weak tornadoes, water spout activity with that. Robert Boyer, thanks for the generosity again, sir. Yes, there is a winter weather advisory for the mountain regions. If I back out, you'll see that. We have winter storm warnings for portions of the Idaho Panhandle, northwest Montana. You can see we got winter storm watches for the Sierra Nevada. And we're currently dealing with some strong winds across portions of Southern California. We are officially in La Nina now. I'm working on another video. I'm probably going to wait until next Thursday when we get the next Climate Prediction Center outlook predictions. Yeah, it'll be kind of brisk. That east wind for Portland will be a bit brisk. San Francisco should get some rain. Right now, the National Weather Service is talking about 1 to 1.5 inches for San Francisco. Probably better amounts as you go down the Central Coast, though. There's a chance of thunderstorms there also Monday and Tuesday. On Tuesday, especially, the upper level is still going to be around. So check back if you got concerns for California, especially. And then Southern California is under the gun coming up here. Los Angeles is still waiting to put out their flood warnings or flood watches. Probably going to come first, a flood watch. They do have a marine weather statement. This is that next storm here, and they talk about the chance of thunderstorms. And you can see rough seas, dangerous lightning, heavy rainfall, reduced visibility, small hail, and even water spouts. This is Monday night into Tuesday night. So they're going to start getting the warnings ramped up here a bit as well. San Diego, they don't have anything out just yet. They're still biding their time. El Nino, maybe next year. Actually, some of the models are pointing at El Nino returning next year. So if we take a look here, this is looking back at Seattle. Let's look at some of the wind shifts here. So this is where we are now. We got a westerly surge going on down the Strait of Juan de Fuca. Westerly winds across the region. This is for Seattle right now first. Now, as we go on into tomorrow morning, actually, let me back this out a little bit because this is not showing everything I want it to. Standby one. Let's go to Washington. And if we take a look here, watch up here in the Fraser River Valley. See how that's starting to come out of the northeast? This is early tomorrow morning. It starts to creep out of the northeast. And you can see it pour out towards the San Juans. You can also see what are southerlies here. So you could get some interesting convergent zone showers across the northwest Washington water, southwest BC. Northeast wind starts down the Fraser River Gap. You can see we got southwesterlies and southerlies across the Puget Sound. And then that north wind wants to start to turn its way down towards the Puget Sound and push across the Puget Sound. And that's going to bring a convergent zone with it as well. That could kick off some lightning. But by the time, in fact, let me back this up one more time. I want to see when the winds turn northerly across the Okanagan River Valley. And in fact, that's not very far away, actually. You can see we start to get northerlies down the Okanagan River Valley out here as we go on in through tomorrow morning. They pick up during the day, it looks like. And they get a bit stronger as we go on in through Monday. As you can see, the winds really pick up across the region here as we go through the day Monday. Strong northerlies down the Puget Sound, Willamette Valley, east winds through the gorge, northeast winds coming across the Cascades, east winds coming through some of the gaps there, and all the way out over the coastal waters there. You can see some strong northeast winds across eastern Washington as well. I mean, so right now, the highest winds are going to be across some of the higher terrain, like the Oregon Cascades, Southern Washington Cascades, like the Natchez, Pacific Coast Trail, if you're out and about. And we're going to get some decent northerly winds down the Puget Sound. You could get some early season damage to some of the trees with the northeast winds coming through the Fraser River Valley, Bellingham, Orcas Island, San Juans. I mean, it's not going to be too crazy unless you're across some of the higher terrain, but there's a lot of leaves on the trees and it's early season stuff. And it's kind of a non-dominant direction. So you got to pay attention to that. Let's do this. Let's go to upper air temperature. But you can kind of see what's spawning this entire thing. As you look off into British Columbia there, look at that cold air pouring down into British Columbia, then eventually down the coastline. And you can just see how anomalously cold this is for the state of California. And that's why this system is really strikingly unusual here for the month of October. It's a really early season, potent storm for California. And it's a shame because a lot of that snow is going to melt, but I mean, at least it will. When snow falls, it's better than rain because snow melts slower and it seeps into the ground better and doesn't run off as much. So snow is still better than rain, but I mean, maybe in a really rare scenario there, the snow would stick around and we'd get more and then go through some kind of severe winter where you don't get any kind of melting of that snow and you kind of hold on to it across the higher terrain, but there'll be more to come. Yeah, that's actually something that I've noticed too. MCLVRSS, random question. It seems like they downplay how strong storms will be until the very last minute. Your forecast is always a little bit more precise. Why is that? Well, I mean, I respect the National Weather Service a lot, and I don't want to badmouth them at all. But I think that a lot of times they're using combination of models and things like that. And they try not to stir things up too much. They don't want to hype things up because they can catch a lot of flack when they warn for storms and things don't happen. But I think that it's always better to kind of err on the side of being more cautious with these storms because it tends to happen, especially, you get some of these frontal systems rolling in and a lot of people are like, the thing you want actually as a meteorologist is to be like, hey, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, which generally means people are just more prepared for it. If a storm just kind of sneaks up on you and hits you, it's always kind of a bigger deal. You're always like kind of, whoa, that was kind of crazy. I didn't expect that. But if you know that a storm is coming, you prepare better for it. It doesn't catch you off guard. You don't have stuff laying around your yard that can blow around, or you clean the leaves out in front of your house and your neighbor did the same so you didn't have water running into your basement. Just all kinds of weird stuff can happen when you aren't prepared for a storm that can leave a lasting memory in your brain. And so it's always something that I'm always looking at this stuff, and as far as the National Weather Service, they have to be responsible for what they are saying. And I try to do the same as well, but I don't know. Sometimes they get caught up a little bit too much in things like the National Blend of Models will kind of downplay precipitation amounts and wind speeds. And again, they're dealing with a lot of different areas they forecast. I mean, I guess I am too, but it's a tough question to answer in all honesty. Yeah, Blewett Pass, that some of that upslope flow could really be generating some big snow amounts. And let's take a look at that. You can really see it right there too, right on. So we'll go back to Washington State. And you can really see that total right there. Let's see what it says as far as accumulated snow depth. Oh, I was doing, no wonder. Okay, I was on centimeters there. No, I guess I wasn't. I was on inches. But you can see right there, that's what Matt's talking about towards Blewett Pass. I mean, that's up over a foot that could possibly stick on the ground. Some big amounts up towards Lake Chelan as well. And this is some kind of model area. I mean, that's Mount Rainier and whatnot, but you're not going to get 120 inches of new snowfall. Thanks for the generosity, the lightning. Express Extreme. Cut off your name there. Sorry. Yes, below average temperatures also. Can it get some local media station phrase asking for confidence in your local forecasting? I mean, you're on. Okay. I appreciate the kind words. I'm not sure exactly what that is. That praise or phrase? I'm not sure. Still 450 people in the chat. I'm going to have to wrap this up here, though. I still have a couple things I got to wrap up. And I was kind of buzzing last night. Did anybody else have that problem after the Mariners game? I couldn't go to bed till like 1 a.m. And then I think I woke up like 3 times in the middle of the night, just kind of like felt like I was still kind of buzzing from that game last night. So that was kind of interesting. So I'm feeling it right now is what I'm trying to say. I'm pretty tired. Yeah, 15 innings. But yeah, so I'll go through everything again here really quick. Again, this is looking at the mid-level water vapor. In fact, let's do this. Let's look at the infrared satellite imagery. Yeah, not shortwave. It's not too good. This is kind of showing it, but it's this energy right here. This is the development of our storm. You can kind of see that cloud shield already moving down the coastline, but this energy here is what's going to spawn the storm for us, Oregon, California over the next few days. So what I've got here is I've got the European on the left versus itself on the right, but this is the jet stream at about 34,000 feet. And again, it's this area right here that's going to spin up this storm. If I put that into motion, you'll see at 10,000 feet, look at that ball of cold air there. And you can see how the jet stream corresponds with those upper level temperatures, really carving itself out along the west coast. And that low basically becomes closed. But you can also see the next system here kind of race across the Gulf of Alaska, bringing its jet stream and kind of pick up that cold air and say, all right, get yourself back up into the polar vortex there. So you're going through that one more time. You can see that cold air drop down into British Columbia, pour off of BC. So notice that. Notice that cold air as it kind of comes down the terrain, pours off the coastline, wraps back out, back into Western Washington, Western Oregon, then all the way down the California coastline. So it is the same energy getting all of us along the West Coast. And you can clearly see that in the jet stream. Well, yeah, there is actually an excellent website that you can do, and they're probably going to like me for pointing this out, but you can go to weather.us. And as you can see here, this is 1962. This is October 11th, and this is the Columbus Day storm. And there goes the Columbus Day storm right here. Boom, right off our coastline. But yeah, this shows the European ERA5 reanalysis. And you can look all the way back. You can go all the way back to 1950 and look up any storm you like. All kinds of different parameters you can look up here. You can go to all and you can see all kinds of cool stuff. Thanks, Lightning Expert. But yeah, Patrick B, anybody who wants to look for this, weather.us. I suggest if you're using this that you go ahead and subscribe and throw some money their way so they can maintain their website. You can get a free version, but it shows you ads and stuff. But anyway, yeah, still 400 people in the chat, but I got to wrap it up. I got to do a couple errands and then I got to go to bed. I got my son's soccer game tomorrow. Then I'm going to be storm chasing tomorrow. But I got to do the videos in the morning also. So I may not actually be able to do the videos until I get home, depending on when I wake up. So, yeah, so I'm going to wrap this up here now. Hopefully you guys are having a good night, and I will do my briefings tomorrow at some point. It may not be till right around noon though. Oh yeah. Thanks for the link there, Matthew. And all right, I will talk to you guys tomorrow.